Hey, my handsome ladies and gentlemen, this is Shmeaty. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. One Pokemon I've been eagerly waiting to try out in the Open Great League since before they even gave us the moveset update teaser last season was Shadow Gyarados. And why is that? Well, its typing makes it a perfect wall for Diggersby, as well as giving Shadow Kanto Marowak a very difficult time. So, we're actually going to be pairing it up with both of those two Pokemon. We're going to pair up our Shadow Gyarados with Shadow Kanto Marowak and Diggersby, as of course with the water and flying typing, you only have two weaknesses to Electric and Rock, both of which the two ground types that you'll have in back will be able to support your Gyarados. Nevertheless, we have a pretty interesting lead in game number one. Shadow Gyarados leading into the very quickly pacing Legacy Air Cutter Corviknight. And Corviknight is definitely revered for its 9-turn pacing. Gyarados has that exact same pacing and wins CMP. As you can see from that initial matchup, we are keeping pace with the Corviknight and also doing more damage to the Corviknight than they are doing to us, because whereas our Dragon Breaths are single resisted, the sand attacks are double resisted, and so the Aqua Tail ends up hitting a lot harder. And we end up having the health lead in that matchup. Nevertheless, we are going to pivot out into our Diggersby here. Important reason, and that's because if after seeing that initial interaction between the Aqua Tail and the Air Cutter versus the Corviknight, the opposing trainer should have definitely recognized that they were going to end up soft losing that matchup. Meaning to me, if they're willing to make that play, that I think Gyarados should be able to have more play in the backline. And it looks like I'm right, because Gyarados is going to be able to snipe the Quagsire. Now, after taking a Scorching Sands, really not too keen on no-shielding a potential Aqua Tail from our Gyarados. And we are going to apply massive amounts of pressure with these Aqua Tails, forcing a shield from the Carbink. And if Carbink thinks that the pressure is going to let up now that the Gyarados has been KO'd, Carbink has another thing coming. Another Scorching Sands is going to be reached from the Diggersby onto the Carbink, and at this point we're just going to leave in our Diggersby and tank whatever move the Carbink decides to throw. The Carbink does not commit to the Moonblast. The resisted Rock Slide is thrown in an attempt to maybe grab a shield from the Diggersby, but we don't fold. We don't need the Diggersby anymore, so we are going to bring in our Shadow Kanto Marowak, and just like the little degenerate that I am going to attempt to two-shield Mudslap through this Quagsire, at least to the best of my ability, and leave with as much energy as I possibly can. I throw an alignment there specifically because that was the 4-cycle for the Quagsire's next Aqua Tail, so I'm only able to throw 2 Mudslaps, but I am maximizing the amount of energy that I get. Speaking of, back in comes the Carbink, eating a Bone Club, taking way too much damage, and that will be a GG after we degen Mudslap down. Oh, come on, bro. What is this nonsense on my screen? Shadow Gyarados leading into an Electrode. We're going to stay in to throw 2 Dragon Breaths, bring in the Shadow Marowak. They do not react in time, and so they do stay in to throw an extra Volt Switch and eat an extra Mudslap. That damage could potentially end up being impactful later on. You are going to see me throw the Rock Slide at the Drifloon. Drifloon is going to oblige with a shield, and now I'm going to be able to go for yet another Rock Slide. Rock Slide onto the Drifloon would still do a substantial amount of damage, even though we are debuffed by 1 stage. Would have really loved for them to throw more energy there, but unfortunately that's just not to be. I am going to bring back in my Gyarados, and I debated whether or not I wanted to shield that Icy Wind, but at the end of the day, I think I definitely need to shield that Icy Wind, especially because they're on Hex and they're already at another. An Icy Wind connects, and that is not going to be the best feeling ever for the Gyarados. However, it is not the most hard-hitting move, so Gyarados is able to pretty easily tank it. Now we are going to get farmed down by the Electrode. Fortunately, didn't give it a whole lot of farm, but this is still going to be a pretty tricky endgame to play out of. 1 shield to 1 shield, bringing back in the Diggersby. Diggersby going to be met with a potential foul play from the Electrode. Electrode fires off the foul play, and we are looking to possibly commit to a full farm down of this Electrode. They're throwing 80 energy here by throwing 2 foul plays, so I'm more than happy to stay in. And now we are going to see a Kanto Marowak. Not Kanto Marowak. They probably wish they were a Kanto Marowak. That is a Kanto Sandslash coming in. And now. We make the catch on the 1 HP Marowak. We had zero room for error with that catch. We catch the Scorching Sands, the more impactful move. This Pokemon also does have access to Legacy Night Slash, I believe, from its community day. We're going to fire off a Fire Punch at the Sandslash. Sandslash shielding up the Fire Punch as this is their last way to get rid of the Diggersby. In comes the Drifloon. I fire off the Fire Punch. Unfortunately, it's caught onto the Drifloon. Very good awareness by my opposing trainer, but we are able to get a very nice quick attack farm down after zero bubbling that Fire Punch. And now what is it they decide to bring in? Realistically, if they bring back in the Electrode, they're just going to get farmed down before making the foul play. Back in comes the Kanto Sandslash, but without enough energy for a move, they are going to concede a match as they knew the Diggersby had the Fire Punch loaded. Getting into the next game, Altaria up against our Gyarados, and we are going straight Crunch up against the Altaria. A potential debuff would be nice, as I believe it would allow our Dragon Rust to do more damage. Altaria going to fire off a move at the exact same time. I may have lost a turn because I don't think I have any residual there, or I may have overtapped and did one extra Dragon Breath when I didn't mean to. But nevertheless, we're going to fire off an Aqua Tail at the Altaria now, as we are getting them very low. This trainer decides to use both shields on their Altaria, and now we're going to bring in Diggersby. They're going to respond with a Marowak behind on energy and down a shield. This is not at all a good matchup for the Shadow Kanto Marowak. It was buffed with Rock Slide, but that's not the move they're throwing at the Diggersby. And although Diggersby did receive a nerf at the start of the season with Scorching Sands no longer debuffing as frequently, it is still going to be able to put up quite the fight up against the shieldless Marowak. Going for the Fire Punch, that's enough to KO. And now, whatever this trainer decides to bring in, they're in trouble. Fortunately for our opponent, looks like they're running the Empoleon Altaria core that has absolutely taken over the Great League. And fortunately for us, that is going to be a Scorching Sands connecting onto the Empoleon. Altaria switches in onto our Marowak aggressive pivot. We were looking to get the KO onto the Empoleon there. But, you know, we don't have to do is shield up this second Sky attack. Although they could have two, the Mud Slap down is still inevitable. Down goes Altaria. Empoleon will not be able to make enough moves to win that game. GG. Getting into the next matchup, and what is this on our screen? That is a Piloswine. I don't even think that's a Shadow Piloswine. That's just a regular Piloswine. Maybe looking to do super effective damage into both ends of the Altaria plus Empoleon core. Nevertheless, they're going to fire off an Icicle Spear, and we are very happy to oblige them with a shield and get the Dragon Breath farm down. Jenny going to peek its little head out for just a second, see the Diggersby, and immediately pivot out into the Claydol. Claydol, I have seen a few of these. I don't know if this is new season shenanigans or if people have an idea with the Claydol tech, but realistically, I don't believe in Claydol this season, and I definitely didn't believe it last season. When we saw a sneaky Claydol at the end of the season, that was pretty fun. Nevertheless, we are going to be able to fire off Scorching Sands. After Scorching Sands onto the Claydol, as one Ice Beam is not going to be enough to KO. It looks as if Claydol is in Dragon Breath down range, but unfortunately, due to the rework, we're not quite able to get that Dragon Breath down, but that's okay. We're going to be able to connect with an Aqua Tail, pulling a shield from the Degene. Degene able to get that full Thundershock farm down. We're looking to bring back in Diggersby. Diggersby looking to commit to a Scorching Sands. I don't have to throw the Fire Punch there. I'm going to force them to go for the Play Rough. In comes the Marowak, and at this point, I would be top lefting. I would be reaching for the door icon at the top left of my screen, because there's absolutely nothing this Degene is going to be able to do. They try to bring in the Claydol. This is a move that could potentially be most impactful. They full send the Ice Beam, so we are going to be able to see the Degene come back in, only to get fully Mud Slapped down. GG's. Getting into the next one, Gyarados leading into Empoleon. Not at all a bad lead for the Gyarados. However, with Empoleon's interesting defensive typing, I am going to pivot out. They are going to go for a Hydro Cannon on my Marowak, definitely demanding a shield, as that would probably do all of my health. So they are going to now counter swap their Gastradon into my Marowak. I lose the CMP tie. That's good information to have, as I wasn't aware that Marowak lost that CMP tie, or that it was even close, to be honest with you. But as it turns out, on average, Gastradon is going to be favored in that CMP tie by a couple points as well. I am going to make sure I don't throw my move on CMP anymore after learning from last time and bring in the Gyarados. Now this is going to be a pretty bad time for the Gastrodon. I'm going to overfarm as much as I can, go for an Aqua Tail, and now I should be doubled up on these Aqua Tails. Aqua Tail number 1 not going to grab a shield as they are not looking to invest any further resources into the Gastrodon. In comes their Charizard in the back. And I am so legitimately confused by this play. Mr. Krabs, I am so confused. We're looking to make another move up against the Charizard, but Charizard also very quickly pacing is going to be able to land an Air Cutter to get the KO on our Gyarados. I am now going to bring in my Marowak, and it seems as if they didn't care that we had so much energy. Oh man, this is so tough. That is definitely the world's most brazen Charizard, staying in up against a Marowak with 2 Rock Slides loaded and continuing to throw fast moves when there are 0 shields in play. Nevertheless, we're bringing in our Diggersby, going for an undercharge of the Scorching Sands. We're able to get an extra quick attack through. All this damage is going to be impactful. They are going to fire off a move at our Diggersby. However, if this isn't a Blast Burn, it also isn't going to KO. I am going to make sure that they use all their energy trying to get rid of the Diggersby, but they do not have enough for another Air Cutter. In comes the Marowak. They're on Ember, but it doesn't charge quickly enough. So Rock Tomb, or rather Rock Slide. Let's hope they never give Rock Tomb to Kanto Marowak. We'll pick up the knockout. GG's. Getting into the next game. What are these leads that I'm seeing? Shadow Gyarados into Unova Stunfisk. I'm going to have to immediately pivot out into my Shadow Kanto Marowak, and I'm going to be met with an Azumarill. So far, so bad, to be honest with you. This is not going very well for me at all, but I am going to be able to basically try to force alignment with our Kanto Marowak here, as they did switch very late. They stood in through a couple of Thunder Shocks, and that energy is not going to be useful later on in this game, let me tell you. Azu goes for the Hydro Pump, and why did they go for the Hydro? If they just went for the Play Rough, they could have probably made a second move, but instead, now they get farmed down. Back in comes the Stunfisk. Stunfisk going to fire off some energy here, looking to put pressure on our Marowak, but I'm very happy to shield here. And now they bring in Talonflame, and Talonflame is going to be tasked with dealing with a Rock Slide. Rock Slide one-shots the Talonflame, maybe thinking that we threw a Bone Club at them, but I had more than enough time to react to the Talonflame switching. That Incinerate never even registers. We're going to bring in our Gyarados, looking to make an Aqua Tail. Unfortunately, our opposing trainer does not quite let us do that. That's perfectly fine by us, though, as we just bring in the Marowak, get as much Mud Slap damage as we can, and I don't even care about throwing a move here, because now the Mud Slaps have put this into a range where no matter how much energy they leave with, they are never going to be able to get rid of this Diggersby. Doesn't matter if this Stunfisk for some reason had Origin Pulse, they're not going to KO the Diggersby from that range. So we get the quick attack farm down, and we're on to the next game. Gyarados leading into a Blastoise. This guy's got the party hat. He is definitely having some fun, but who's not having fun is Gyarados in this matchup. I am going to fire off a move, but unfortunately I mistime it and I throw my move on alignment. This is very bad for us. This Blastoise has an insurmountable energy lead, and I basically just have to call it bait. This game is decided whether or not they Skull Bash here, but wait, they go for the Hydro Cannon bait for absolutely no reason, and now Gyarados is able to potentiate forcing a shield or big damage with the Crunch there. Crunch gets the Blastoise very, very low, and now they are going to fire off another Hydro Cannon. They are going to allow themselves to get farmed down, which is a questionable play because they have a Serperior that they could have just counter-switched in, and we're going to be able to fire off Rock Slides at the Serperior. We are not in any way, shape, or form in a good position here, but we are going to try to fight back as best we can. The alignment is heavily in our opponent's favor, but let's see what we can do. We're going to no-shield the Frenzy Plant, as it's not really worth keeping the Kanto Marowak alive up against a Serperior. We are going to look to try to catch before the Serperior throws a Frenzy Plant at our Diggersby, but that isn't to be, and we fail to catch. Down goes our Gyarados, and our resources are running critically low. I might be low on resources, but I am not low in determination. I do not want this team to win. They are going to bring in their Belly Bolt, firing off a Parabolic Charge at our Diggersby, and unfortunately, going to play into the losing CMP tie. They are now 2 stages boosted, so I can go for an undercharge and farm down strategy here. Unfortunately, I believe enough fast moves have been thrown where they will be able to pivot out out of this matchup. Go for the undercharge of the Scorching Sands. It's not enough to KO, but in comes their Serperior. And now, with the energy lead that the Serperior has, and where I'm at on energy, I have one play left. This has to be an aerial ace bait. If it's not, we will lose the game. They full send the Frenzy, playing to their win con. GG's to this trainer. We are going to see a lead that Gyarados doesn't mind in the next game. It's going to be up against a Shadow Shiny Dragonite. Pretty cool flex. They are going to switch out and safe switch into their Clodsire. As soon as they get to the Sludge Bomb, as I don't believe they would be on Stone Edge, I don't think they need flying coverage. I think they need fairy coverage with the Dragonite lead. So I switch as soon as they get the Sludge Bomb and catch it where it's resisted onto my Marowak. Unfortunately, I mistimed my switch and I'm not able to get my Mud Slap through for free. But I don't think that's going to have any real impact on this match. I am going to be able to get a Bone Club to connect onto the Clodsire. You don't have to shield this Earthquake, it's not going to be enough to KO. And now they bring back in their Dragonite. The Dragonite can be met with a potential Bone Club. Let's hope our opponent does not know how to count. Unfortunately, they did successfully pass the first grade, so they are going to be able to no-shield my Bone Club. But now, putting pressure on them with our Dragonite, we're going to go for the Aqua Tail. It does a sizable amount of damage, leaving them on 1 HP, or at least in 1 Dragon Breath range. In the back, they are going to have the most washed slug since Gastradon. Unfortunately, Gastradon isn't washed, but it is a water type. It is going to be the Dunsparce. Dunsparce is going to be having to deal with multiple Aqua Tails here, and with grabbing both shields with Aqua Tails, I'm very happy to just let my Gyarados go. But before we do that, we're going to get a parting gift of a last-second Aqua Tail, pivoting out into the Diggersby, and there is no win con remaining for our opponent with a 2-0 shield Diggersby, so they are going to top left. GG's. We were just talking smack about this wash slug. We are going to see a Gastrodon on the lead, and they're staying in. Very interesting, but I am going to be able to strictly outpace with my Gyarados here, going for the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail connects, doing more than 50% onto the Gastrodon. Gastrodon going to retaliate with what's likely to be a Body Slam. I'm going to be able to outpace to their second Body Slam. They bring in their Empoleon, and Empoleon here is just going to simply get farmed down. They are going to fire off a Hydro Cannon at the Kanto Marowak, and Kanto Marowak is of course going to oblige with a shield. I'm going to fire off a Bone Club here, looking to pick up the knockout or grab a shield from the Empoleon. We're able to do the former. Picking up the KO is very nice for us. We're going to see the Gastrodon get brought in, and with the information I learned earlier, I'm not playing the CMP here. No, instead we're going to go for the farm down of the Gastrodon, but they're able to pivot out on 1 HP. Not the best for us. I'm going to fire off a Rock Slide at the Charizard that gets brought in. Charizard is going to have a relatively tough time getting rid of the Marowak. I'm going to look for a catch onto our Gyarados, but unfortunately, this is going to be a move that most likely will KO the Air Cutter. Not the most powerful move, but coming from a Pokemon like Charizard, especially when it boosts, this is going to be very difficult. I am going to now need to bring in my Diggersby. Fortunately, the Dragon Breath's not doing as much fast move pressure as they previously would have, but Blast Burn is going to connect, doing a massive amount of damage onto my Diggersby. I decided to pause a turn up against a 1-turn fast move. Definitely not a recommended play, as they can switch at any time. I am going to now bring in Kanto Marowak. Kanto Marowak looking to connect with a Bone Club onto the Charizard. Charizard is going to go down. In comes the 1 HP Gastrodon. GG's to this trainer. We've now made it to the final game of the video, and it is going to be our Shadow Gyarados leading into a Hypno. Now, one thing I am very careful of doing is not speaking in absolutes at the start of a season. And why? I feel like that's a very easy way to get egg on your face when inevitably something in the meta changes, or your Pokemon that you said was going to be the greatest thing ever is not nearly as good as anticipated. So one thing I will be able to say for certain is that Hypno is a washed Pokemon and you should not run it. Speaking of washed, it looks like the opposing trainer is going for the fully washed theme team, bringing in a Jumpluff. Jumpluff with this season is going to likely be running Energy Ball and Acrobatics, especially if they are on Bullet Seed. This is getting very, very strange, but Fire Punch is going to connect, and we are going to be able to bring in our Gyarados, looking to get the KO with a potential Aqua Tail here. I don't think this is going to be enough to knock out the Jumpluff, but it is enough to force a shield. They are going to fire off yet another move here, and I don't care what this is, I'm going to shield it up. Even if it was an Aerial Ace Bait, which has been nerfed to the ground to be a truly terrible move, I am still going to oblige with a shield. Speaking of, Back in comes Hypno. Hypno firing off the Ice Punch at our Gyarados. I'm going to fire off an Aqua Tail. And now, Aqua Tail here should be enough to KO the Hypno. They let go of the Hypno. That is actually to my surprise. The confusion damage could have potentially been a pretty viable way to get this Pokemon off their screen, but now I don't think they have a viable way to get this Pokemon off their screen. I'm going to fire off an Aqua Tail at the Corviknight, looking to maybe catch an Air Cutter here. Unfortunately, no such luck. And now, I'm going to bring back in the Gyarados, looking to fire off an Aqua Tail. They don't throw in time, but they catch onto Jumpluff. This is not good for me at all. I am going to farm down the Jumpluff, and now the Corviknight can at any time throw an Air Cutter. This is going to be very, very close. The Air Cutter, oh, it's a Sky Attack instead, picks up the knockout. And if they're not on Air Cutter here, I don't think they have enough juice in the tank to get away with a W here. We're going to see Payback is connecting onto our Shadow Marowak. They may have needed to go for the double Sky Attack, and indeed they did. That was not a CMP tie, so Bone Club number 1, although it is resisted by the Corviknight, is going to be enough to grab the shield. Bone Club number 2 will be able to KO the Corviknight with resisted damage. GG's to this trainer. If you made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. Shadow Gyarados, definitely an interesting Pokemon and one that I would highly recommend building for not only the Open Great League, but also Great League Limited metas this season, as well as Ultra League and Master Premier. This Pokemon looks to be a true menace. With its pacing, its great moveset, as well as just the sheer amount of damage that it can do because it's a Shadow Gyarados. I think we have a truly good Pokemon on our team and can catch opponents off guard if they're not prepared for it. That being said, thank you once again so much for watching today's video. I've been Shmeaty. I hope to see you all again next time, and have a good rest of your day. See ya.